welcome to Inside the Outhaus. My name's Pete Smith and I'm the Chief Chatbot and Telemarketer inside the Outhaus. Before we actually get started and hear a little bit about a pretty amazing program, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this great land that we are learning and teaching on, and just acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging, and wherever we're doing our activities across this country. I'd also like to acknowledge the ongoing sponsorship of ACU, my employer, for providing the platform for this particular podcast. And I would like to just direct you, if you haven't already discovered it, to the amazing resources that are managed by my wonderful team on the SharePoint site for this particular forum, where there's a whole lot of literature and resources put up there pretty continuously by people who have a vested interest in the outdoor education sector. So today we're in the Outhaus, and we're actually pretty privileged to be discussing expedition programming and looking at that in perhaps historically what it's looked like, and also what it is going to become in a post-pandemic kind of COVID world. A while back, as my career has been quite extensive, I worked on an amazing program called the Firbank Journey. And back when I worked on the journey, it was quite a lengthy event. I think it was about 15 days of traveling with a Year 9 group of girls across the Bogon High Plains and managing their needs, going through various activities and leading them in the outdoors. And it was nothing, the 3 journeys that I actually worked on during my time working in Victoria were nothing short of amazing programming in terms of life-changing for me, and hopefully life-changing for the people involved. And we're very lucky today to have the man who is currently the head of outdoor education at Firbank Grammar School in Melbourne, Bernie Mills. He stepped into the house and he's kindly agreed to give us some background of that particular program. And then we're just going to have a general conversation after he speaks for a bit of time about what expedition style programming is going to look like in the future, and perhaps ask Bernie a few questions around the Firbank Journey specifically for those who aren't familiar with that particular program. Hopefully that hasn't put you too much on the spot, Bernie. If that's a good enough intro, I'd like to throw over to you. And thank you very much for being in the house, if I haven't said so already.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And yeah, great to be involved. And yeah, thanks for reaching out. It's, I suppose, traditionally, it's probably not been something that I've worked towards, is in promoting externally our program. Even though, you know, we're proud of what we can offer and what the girls achieve on the programs ultimately. You know, a lot of it's been sort of internally marketed and celebrated. But, you know, I think with all that's happening at the moment with Covid-19 and having to really justify every cent that's spent, and also from an academic balance, when so much class time's missed, is deciding how best give the girls, or in my case, give the girls or students an opportunity, you know, that's holistic. So, you know, in many ways, this is a really tough time, I think, for most. But I'm also trying to look at it as in a really positive mindset, in that we've actually got an opportunity to start with a blank canvas, and some things that perhaps are we've always assumed is going to be a certain way we can start again. So I've actually really enjoyed the process over the last few months, as being able to go, all right, let's start from scratch, and where do we want to go from here. So yeah, thanks, Peter. I'd like to welcome you back one time with the journey. Yeah, our Year 9 journey has been around a long time, and I worked on a Firbank program myself before I was a teacher. That would have been about 15 years ago, and was really impressed by the students and the school and the journey, adventure journey aspect and philosophy. So that was a big part of my want to go back to Firbank. I've been at Firbank now 8 years, leading the program, and yeah, certainly Firbank's Outdoor program has a rich history of delivering journey-based programs. So certainly not a lot of it's not set up by me, but you know, I've yeah, taken over and put my own spin on it. We have a wonderful leadership team at Firbank, wonderful parents that all value outdoor ed. So the culture at Firbank is really strong when it comes to outdoor ed. One of the other reasons I think the during this pandemic and reimagining outdoor ed as we knew it, is that there's a real desire from not only the students but the parents as well, that we offer a holistic education. And I think that's been one of our greatest strengths, that you know, I've always said you don't leave the school as a really strong, capable, confident student by just signing up and paying the money to come to our school. It really is all the things we offer, the staff they have, the support from parents, and the opportunities they're given, and these kids take up. It's those things that actually make a student a really capable and strong and life-ready student by the time they finish at the school. So no different to any other school, I suppose, aspiring to put outdoor education as one of the major factors of the education and their journey. And I suppose I've just been lucky to be part of it. But what it really is the students themselves. I think if we give them an opportunity to step up, try new things, we believe in them, they still continue, you know, nearly 9 years later. I'm still surprised by their abilities and willingness to try things, and determination and persistence, and all those things that we all hope young adults have, which seems to be in some cases harder and harder to find. But you know, through Outdoor Ed, I think we can really promote that, and unless we give students the opportunity to experience that, then we're always going to, you know, that they're never going to really know what they're capable of. So, yeah, hopefully that gives you a little summary of the philosophy behind it. In terms of the pandemic, I think Peter said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, you mentioned, you know, how schools and organisations are responding to COVID-19. Is that correct?
I mean, that's sort of been a bit of a focus of this forum. The forum sort of started at pretty much at the beginning of the pandemic, and we've sort of been trying to unpack how different organisations, different schools, different individuals are perhaps responding to the pandemic in their own way.
Yeah. Okay. So I suppose me personally, and as a school, we tried to get on the front foot. So as a school, we had a decision if this year Outdoor Ed was going to be something that was going to remain a key focus of the kids' learning journey. If it was something we were going to continue to invest in, if it was financially viable this year, given that we're a private school that relies on an independent school that relies on school fees. And obviously the practical components for, with isolation and things like that. So all things considered, we had a number of meetings and discussions and decided that yes, we definitely wanted to still make this a key focus. We need to make sure it's financially viable. So certainly trying to be creative in the way that we reduce costs where possible. Also, in Victoria, outdoors is huge, in particular in the independent sector. So there's also the practical challenges with all different schools and organisations and companies wanting to use the same venues later on in the year, which I anticipate is going to be challenging. So we tried to think a little bit outside the box with what we offer and how we do it. And I think, like I've always seen, Outdoor Ed should complement the other great things that are happening at the school. So how we find that balance with what we offer. Some of our programs are student funded or family funded. So we're actually having a discussion now about the challenges around offering some of our premier programs that have families having to fund part of those trips, and the extra pressure that may put on families. We don't want any students missing out. We don't want families, parents to be in a position where they need to find that money when they perhaps don't. And we obviously want to do it safely. So I suppose we're going through that process now. But ultimately at Firbank, we've committed to it and reaffirmed that this is really valuable, and the students are really excited about it, and so are the parents. So that's been key to us. But in terms of, as I said at the start, I think responding quickly, coming up with alternatives, so that we are in the best position to offer something, and throughout this process communicating with parents the whole time so they're aware of how what our thinking is, for example, and also getting parents to buy into that process as well. So our final program, Peter mentioned that Year 9 program, that's a compulsory, all students have to do that, but as they build up further into the program in Year 11, we offer a Cosy to the Coast, or Summit to Sea. We call it Summit to Sea. It's walking from Mount Kosciuszko down to the Snowy River over about 6 days, and then paddling the Snowy River down to the sea in Victoria, Marlow. So it takes our students about 19 days to do self-sufficiently. Now that's an additional cost for our parents and family. So just emailed our parents to get a sense of where they're at with that. Would they like us to postpone it till next year? Is it something they'd still like to do this year? Because I think a key thing for the kids, like all of us, is we want to get out, and we're desperate to get out. And whilst we're in this virtual world, and in particular with the academic studies, they're well and truly glued to laptops and phones. Having hope and something to focus on and look forward to, and just reconnect with nature, I think is really important. But we just got to get the timing right. Pete, is there something else you'd like me to focus on?
No, that was a very comprehensive set of information. I don't know about other people in the room. I've written down a few things that I wanted to ask, but I'm just going to open shall we say, a conversation more than a Q&A for Bernie. I'd just like to have a conversation, if we could stay kind of focused on expedition style programming in the outdoors. Yeah. And people in the room might have a few questions for Bernie specifically. I'll let you guys take it away.
Bernie, I'm going to hit you up with a question because I'm sure we've all got millions. It sounds like things are very fluid still in your space. Have you got much guidance from, from state bodies, from the government about what are the required, safety protocols and extra parameters you need to put in place for concerns around COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one where we're crossing our fingers with. I suppose I'm looking at it two ways. Where to answer the question about government regulations, Department of Education in Victoria still have a hold on all camps and excursions. So at this stage, we can't run any camps, excursions at the moment, or expeditions. That said, though, we wouldn't usually run, we're coming into winter in Victoria, so we wouldn't usually run many of those longer ones at this time of the year anyway. So we're fortunate in that sense with the timing. A lot of these trips happen toward the end of the year as we come into summer. But I suppose we've also started a strategic plan in the event that we can't run or we don't have access to the venues for this year. So rather than looking at a particular program that we typically offer to a certain year level, I'm going through a process of looking at where they're at the moment in that sequence, and how can we get them to the end of that sequence with the amount of years they got left. So we might postpone to next year. We're hoping not to cancel any programs. We're hoping that they get postponed. It's just a matter of until when, basically. So, but we're crossing our fingers that we can get outdoors as soon as we can and start doing things. I think one thing with expeditions, and something that it takes people time to get their head around, in particular if they don't come from an outdoor background, is that you cannot skip steps in this process. So our ultimate goal is to get as many students participating in our Summit to Sea expedition at the end of year 11, which is that 19-day program I referred to. It's probably not necessarily the main one, but we want those. We're building up towards that. But that year 9 program Peter spoke about, that's probably key to what we do, because that's compulsory for every year 9 student. We've got about 130 students in the year level that now complete generally a 10-day expedition over Victorian Helps and paddling down a whitewater river in 2-person rafts. So we work towards that, and then from that, and that's designed to be challenging, because within reason, out of their comfort zone, forced to work as a team, and by the end of that, we want them to be returning feeling confident and feeling like they can take on the world, and if they have a good mindset, they can achieve something. So that's our aim in year 9, and then a measure of success is probably our year 11 program, that Summit to Sea program, with how many students we have involved in it. But through each of the year levels, we need to build their confidence, we need to build their skill set. We also need to build parent confidence as well if they're new to the school, so that they're if you said to a new parent perhaps that we're encouraging their child to go to a remote area of Australia in the middle of nowhere, no showers, no toilets, then some might think we're crazy. So we also need to condition our parents so they are confident that we've got everything in place, and they feel absolutely sure that their questions are answered, and their daughter will return happy and better for the experience, and obviously for it to be a safe and enjoyable one. So I think key to these is making sure we don't just skip steps, because if we do, then we find we'll have, I think, dropout rates. We'll have students not attending programs because they don't have the confidence, and then we need to water down the programs because they're not going to have the skill set and ability to manage different environments. So rather than cancelling programs, looking at the bigger picture of where they start and where they get to by the end of the program, the sequential program, and if we can make some adjustments but still get to where we want to get to, hopefully it doesn't matter when we do it.
Bernie, I had a question. You talked about some of the alternatives that you'd have to do for your programming with the COVID and stuff that's going on. What kind of precautions and stuff have you put into place for expedition-based journeys regarding tents or anything like that?
To be honest, I haven't really got to that stage yet. We haven't needed to. We've postponed most of our programs until sort of mid-term 3, which is early September for us. So we're still a little bit off needing to make significant decisions. We've just redesigned and promoted a program that used to go overseas to Vietnam for 3.5 weeks. We've brought that back to Australia, to Central Australia. So the biggest hurdle at the moment is, can we access, will the borders be open by the start of September? The next thing would be, if we're in there, do we need to self-isolate? Can we go and work with any communities? Will parks be open for us to complete any of the expedition aspects there? And even that in itself has been problematic, because in September, middle of the year, looks like I'm getting a call. I don't know if that's from. Am I still there, guys? I don't know. That's great. Thanks. Don't know. I wasn't sure if that was a Zoom call. Yeah. So where was I? So yeah. So we've got the obvious issues with borders opening. Obviously, Melbourne or Victoria being one of the states that have more cases of COVID-19. You know, is it appropriate for us to be going into the Northern Territory? And I must say, in Victoria, things are changing it feels, I'm sure, like everywhere, but by the day. So again, we're aiming for this year, but if we need to postpone till next year, we'll do that. But in terms of Victoria and social distancing within schools, there's no expectation, from my knowledge, that students are needing to social distance within a school setting. Staff are a different case there, and some of you may have more up-to-date information than I do. But yeah, I think bigger picture, we've got some issues with borders opening and been on planes, etc. I even thought that if it's appropriate to, if it's not that appropriate to fly at the moment or safe, then perhaps we could take buses. But I think we're still, if we're at that stage where we're having to make drastic decisions like that, then it's probably not safe and appropriate for us to run the program now. So yeah, I haven't given you many ideas there, because I haven't really needed to get to that level of detail yet.
Bernie, I just wanted to know, what was the communication? How's the communication going with parents, and what's the process there? I mean, it seems like it's been a program that's been going a long time, so I'd sort of think that parents would actually have been more or less behind the program going ahead. And I just want to know where that sort of part of the puzzle was going at this stage. Are you getting lots of inquiries about it, or any of that type of element?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, there's definitely a really strong and positive culture. I think there'd be issues if we were deciding to move away from outdoor ed, which is wonderful for us all in outdoor education, to be in that position. But I think there's definitely been a desire to and some communications with. I really hope we can run this, or hope we can do that, but certainly nothing negative. Only positive, really. And with this new program that we've designed for Central Australia, which was, as I said, the overseas program, the feedback's been really positive. So yeah, fortunate in that sense.
Can I ask, Bernie, like with a school with such a pedigree of, I guess, expedition style programming, I've always sort of thought that perhaps in a post-COVID world, we're actually going to be almost, shall I suggest, safer, for want of a better term, when we are on an extended expedition. Potentially the group has been, shall we say, screened before they attend the expedition. And was there any discussion around that, I guess, the relative safety of people in expedition type programs versus other type of outdoor ed programming?
I would agree. There's no doubt. I think we've all probably changed our practice overnight, haven't we, with hygiene and distancing. No specific discussions about how we change in the long term. I think me personally, over the last number of years, have increased a lot of those hygiene practices, and I think probably not necessarily hygiene, but even just dietary, with an increase of anaphylaxis and other intolerances. Those things have become, significant. And when we talk about a quality program or a quality experience for a student, we need to make sure we cross the T's and dot the I's in that sense, because that can ruin an experience for a student. And there's obviously a lot of comfort that comes in food and a lot of communal living. So in that sense, I think they've improved over the years, but they're certainly going to more so.
Hey Bernie, David here. I just looking through your, thanks for your presentation though, it's been great. I'm looking through the material from last year's Year 10 program. If you get something like that off the ground this year in the timeframe you have left, how's your approach going to be towards your outside providers that you're employing to run the specialist stuff? So I'm presuming you're getting sea kayakers to, the sea kayaking trips and mountain bikers for the NT and stuff like that. So if you were going to go ahead, how's the school looking at that relationships at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, David. That's been a challenge. And that is one program that we've decided to bring back to Victoria. So that was scheduled to run at the end of this term, so in a month's time. So obviously I left it as late as I could with the providers that we work with. And so that program is an options program. We work with, we either run some programs internally and some are just with small organisations. So that's really tough. We've had to effectively cancel some of those programs this year with which all the companies have been really understanding and understand that's just the way it is. But from a school's perspective and being understanding of the challenges that these small organisations are going through, I spoke to them really early on. I haven't asked for any deposits returned. I made sure that payments that were any work that was already done. So, for example, planning, permits, anything that they've done from an admin perspective, that they got paid for that work. And then there's the hope that we can go back next year. So we've moved that program back to Victoria for this year, and we've tried to offer similar programs in Victoria. Tried to help the service providers as best we can financially, and I've worked with most of them for many years, so they've been appreciative of the transparency. I think that's probably been key, to be transparent, and the conversations to be ongoing. This is how we're looking. This is what we're thinking. And what I've always done is make sure that I call and speak to every provider. So and I've done it a number of times over the last few months, so that there's no surprises. It's respectful, and it's personable, and it's not simply sending an email where you're cancelling a program and then subsequently perhaps asking for money back because borders are closed. So I think the relationships in these cases are key. I think as a company, you rely on schools and individuals to sign up to programs and activities and packages, but ultimately we as a school we put so much emphasis and rely on wonderful staff and companies to keep our students safe. So to me that's key, and I'm again fortunate to be at a wonderful school that understands that, and the relationships will continue. And where possible, I'll continue to support those organisations because they've always been very loyal and good to me.
Do you how are you finding, I guess, from the other side of the story, teachers' willingness and engagement to be on program, in the short to medium term future, September? Is the vibe positive that they're wanting to go back out on program with students to get the values that they've, and again, I worked for OEG for about 10 years and had some contact with Firbank programs back in those days as well. But are teachers, given that they're at a higher risk to COVID-19 potentially, is what we've been saying, than students, how are you finding that within the school's climate at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. It hasn't been an issue yet, and probably because we're still a little bit off the reality of delivering anything. If trips were going out tomorrow, I'd say that that would be an issue for some staff, given their age and also just the practicalities of having young families at home and having to teach remotely. But in Victoria, where the schools are opening up again quickly, all our year 10 to 12s, VCO 11 and 12s are back now, and over the next week all our students will be back. So I think there's actually some excitement about having the students back, some normality, but certainly there's an element of what would the word be? There's a cautious approach, obviously, towards having to, as staff, as adults in particular, protect themselves and protect others, and then the flow-on effect. But from an expedition perspective, I would say we haven't got to that stage yet where staffing has been discussed, and where it needs to. It's been a worry for anyone. But on the other hand, there's been some really positive feedback coming from the staff, more so than normal. Perhaps they're just more on their emails and on their computers, and they're seeing the communications and booklets and videos that are getting sent out, but the feedback's been really positive. But I think staff, kids, and I'm sure all of us, we're just keen to get out and get into nature.
Keen to not be sitting in Zoom meetings all day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
That said, though, I must say the Zoom has opened up. We use Microsoft Teams at Firbank, and it really has opened up a new world for us. Like for those, I don't know if there's many here from schools in a school setting, but gee, it's hard to get students. And Pete and Dave, if you've worked on journeys in the past, I don't know if it happened when you work with Firbank, but we've always invested in bringing staff. Well, since I've been at Firbank anyway, bringing staff into the school prior to program, working with the students in the lead up. You know, sometimes twice over a couple of months before they go, so they know they're leaders and they're prepared. They're not just getting put on a bus and sent out to the wilderness. So I think in that sense, preparing them is key.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that quickly. I think it changes the nature of the staff relationship with the students on the program, with all that pre-journey prep work you do. You actually go down to Firbank on, I think when I did it was like 2 or 3 occasions, and meet with the students, do packing days, get to know the group, and it changes the whole nature of rather than you just turning up on day one with an unknown group of kids and running a trip. So I big thumbs up for that extra work that school does in that program, because it makes a massive difference in the type of program that as a staff member you can run.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I think I probably didn't articulate that last bit well enough, in that I think having this virtual world means that we can actually connect a lot easier and quicker with the students. So in the past, I would organise a meeting space, a time, and often students couldn't come because of different things that got on, or if they're away, or whatever. Whereas I found now that we've been set up with this online system, I can put a meeting on it straight after school at 3:30, and they just log on for 5 minutes, and it's not a big deal. And I just ask them a quick question or just give them a little update, and off they go. And I can see that being a really productive way in the future as well, when we come back to the new normal, as they say, where they can all log on for 5 or 10 minutes. They can get the information. I think key to the success of the programs, and also what's happening at the moment, is getting the students buying into everything. So I've always believed in being transparent with the students and parents, and there had been an open dialogue, a willingness to always learn and get better. And from that, if we can do that quicker through this, then I think that's going to be better for all of us. So don't get me wrong, we're going to have to save some money. We're an independent school with parents that can't afford the fees at the moment. So I can see things like Zoom and Teams, and I don't think House Party, but one of these two might be a way that we can connect with leaders and guides before programs, to prepare them.
Can I just ask the room, as we've got like about 10 minutes to go, there's been a question which seems to be recurring in the group chat, which I'd like some input from maybe other people. Do other people in the room, are they familiar with the expedition style programs that other schools are running? Ellen made a comment that her school is going back to that type of programming next semester. And what are people's feelings about that from their own experience in their own expedition type programming?
seeing as it's my question, I was going to say, we are very much hoping to return to expedition programming, having many of the same hurdles as everyone else. I'm really excited, but I expect, like many people, we're waiting on a budget. Like, we don't have, our budgets have been frozen. So we're waiting to be, to find out what we can move forward and how we can move forward. And I think we're waiting on calendars, and I expect that many people are in a similar place. Is anyone else in a sort of holding zone like that before they can move forward?
Yeah, Ellen, in Brisbane here, we're waiting for the excursion classification to be lifted. That's the main thing holding us up from doing any sort of programming, from day trips to expeditions. Where if that stays in place, we're going to be running experiences at school, incursions, until excursions are available.
Eric, is that state government legislation, or is it a policy at the school?
It's the AHPPC recommendation, which is a little bit above the federal government recommendations in terms of a focus on health, and that's what our school's working on. We're a bit different to a lot of other schools. We're socially distancing students. There's arrows and tape all over school, and grammar's gone to a bit of a higher level there than needed, but maintaining that, and it's all reliant on the AHPPC recommendations there. But great to have a calendar approved to have student time booked in term 3 and 4, where we're going to run shortened programs and still connect with all the kids that we can.
That would be so exciting.
Yeah,
we put proposals forward.
Yeah, I'm up to about version 6. Version 6 draft got approved just last week, so it was exciting.
Yeah.
Derek, it's pretty awesome that there's that support from your school. Just kind of interested to know what the focus of if you can only do incursions, like where you're trying to focus that in terms of like the curriculum and stuff.
Yeah, we have a set of learning outcomes for each year level and a focus for each program, and it'll be around the skills and knowledge and dispositions that we're trying to achieve in the outdoor program. So it'll be outdoor related activities in an incursion. Our program's a little bit unique that we work with the boys for 6 years in a row every year. So a lot of our focus is developing relationships and building strong bonds with these students, so when they come out for their peak experience, they know us and they trust us, and we can work with them. So it's not purely just about the skills, outdoor skills and knowledge. Maintaining a connection with the students is just as important.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Sue Donahue, who's from Canberra Grammar, is in the room today, and thanks for joining us, Sue. She's mentioned that the school's not running any major programming at all this year, which is interesting because I know from that area around the ACT, Outward Bound, and Greater New South Wales, it's a big draw card for a lot of staff because the programs are generally quite long, expedition style. So it could be a significant impact if several schools actually go down that pathway. Has anyone got any opinion or a comment on that?
Well, I have an opinion. Like I think that because we are at the stage that we're at, I think we're all sort of trying to format procedures and protocols for moving forward in a fairly uncertain era, because we're dealing with a pandemic that we haven't seen before. And so I think the good thing about having these types of discussions is people are actually getting together in the same forum and actually throwing ideas around. So I think that I don't think there's any real answers, and depending on where your programming is at, depends on sort of where you are in terms of moving forward in that direction. Like I know, for example, at ACU, they're still making decisions about whether students are in fact going to do face-to-face learning in second semester. So.
Does anyone here, Sue mentioned that they were going to run Duke of Ed programs. Does anybody else here have plans for Duke of Eds and kind of how they're going to run those?
Yeah, sure. We've got 2 Duke of Ed trips planned, one September holidays, one in December as well. Duke of Ed have said that if it's not suitable to run overnight trips, then there's some other arrangements, and they're still happy to sign off some adventurous journeys. So we've booked in the dates. We'll run day trips if that's still inappropriate to not have students out in the field overnight in a residential or tent setting. And we'll apply to the State Award Office to sign off the adventurous journey because some students that are finishing Year 12 this year, it's their last opportunity to jump through the last couple of hoops and get it signed off before they finish school. So I've had a couple of meetings where they've said that it'll only be under extreme circumstances that they'll allow non-residential adventurous journeys, and that's an example where it's the students' last chance to complete their adventurous journey before they have the opportunity before the award closes for them. But yeah, hoping to run 2 probably sea kayaking or bushwalking journeys September and December this year.
Shrey, I'm not sure whether you saw, but or like whether you're in on the email trail, but I know the Queensland Award Office sent out the document kind of discussing what the changes were to Duke of Ed, at least in Queensland, although I think they're carrying the same changes across like all states. And yeah, what Derek was saying about, I think Duke of Ed being a bit more open to different types of programming for adventurous journeys is quite interesting. It's a really interesting space to be working in at the moment, especially when kind of they're looking at big alternatives where you can be programming something in urban spaces for students who might already be in urban spaces. There's day trips and stuff, so it'll be interesting to go through that process. I know I've been booked in to run a few, but what I don't really depend on what we can do kind of every month time.
Thanks, Henry. Do you have a link to that? If you can,
I can find it. Yeah, I think so.
Wonderful. If you wouldn't mind posting it in the chat, that'd be great.
I'd just like to jump in there and give a huge shout out to Bernie Mills from Firbank Grammar in Melbourne for not only giving his time, but sharing his amazing insight into what I think is an amazing outdoor education program at an amazing school. Thanks very much for coming, Bernie. We'd give you a huge round of applause, and we can perhaps do that virtually as we speak. I would add, if you're not doing anything at 16:17 on Monday afternoons, your input into other Outhaus discussions would be always welcome, but I know you're probably a busy man. Thanks, Bernie.
No, thanks, Pete. I'd love to join. I think I think we can all learn from each other on just one of many good examples, and or not even necessarily a good example, an example, and yeah, we can all learn and enjoy this journey together, and sort of as you said earlier, I think we might come out the other end better, or at least different, and you know, I think I've certainly gone through this process in the last couple of months, but hopefully with other schools that it reaffirms why we need outdoor education in schools, and hopefully, you know, if nothing else, you know, some short-term pain for hopefully some long-term gain. But yeah, that may be just that's an optimistic approach anyway. But yeah, I wish you all well, and thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it and would love to join in future ones.
Thanks, Bernie. That was really great. While I think of it, just going back to the Duke of Ed point, something that escaped my mind at the time is that Duke of Ed's looking at a new thing for their bronze adventurous journeys called the virtual experience. I think they're terming it. They haven't really explained what it is yet, but going back to kind of the reason for the Outhaus in terms of like different ways of programming, it'll be really interesting to see how that develops and what they are focusing on in a virtual experience, because they're talking about it needing to be co-present and still working as a group environment. So whilst I have no information about what it looks like, if I get any updates on it, I'll bring it back to the Outhaus and let everyone know what it looks like. But that could be a really exciting new way of virtually programming outdoor experiences.
Yeah, I think that you know, like I agree, Henry. I think it's about, like, I see it as about thinking about the world in a slightly different way. I'm a passionate outdoor educator. From the color of my hair, I've been doing it for a while. And I think that we need to still bring the beauty of nature-based experience, but we need to do it in a, shall we say, a COVID-aware way. I like aware better than safe.
Do we have video of the week?
Ooh.
Or is that Firbank's video of the week?
I'm a bit disorganized. I've got quote of the week, if you want me to give you that, but I don't have video of the week.
Go for it, Pete. I'll put the video of the week up.
Quote of the week. There exists within everyone a great passion, an outlandish thirst for adventure, a desire to live boldly and vividly. I thought that was particularly relevant to today's conversation, and that was said by Kurt Hahn, one of the gurus in our world. Thanks very much for coming. As it's 17.